Okay, bit of an odd one today. We are going to go alongside the River Stour, a section of the Stour or Stour in Suffolk. Regular subscribers will know that I prefer the smaller rivers. I'm not a massive fan of big rivers. I like little wild ones. And I originally came up to visit a different stretch of the river. I am a member of a local angling society, which brings up a whole other question about whether or not I should have to pay to fish in the rivers that I regard as my birthright, but that's a whole other discussion. Unfortunately, both of the parking places that were identified in that angling society's website are inaccessible in my motorhome, so I've come to this other stretch of the river, the rights of which belong to this angling society. I've actually fished this in the summer a couple of times with no significant success, but it is known to hold some barbel, chub, and further up in the stretch, or further down in the stretches I was planning to visit, there are some trout. So I was going to go and look at them and see if it were going to be possible to hurl a fly, but we shall see. So let's have a little poke around this bit of it. It's rather more accessible than the Roman River, that's for sure. Look, there's actually a path to follow. My God, such luxury. And this brings up the discussion about whether I should have to pay to fish in what is my birthright. And I've long been of the view that I shouldn't, but I've come around to the fact that there are benefits to be had from joining angling societies who have the rights to fish on certain waters. One of which is that they maintain both the quality of the fish stocks and the quality of the access to the water in the first place. So in the case of this, perhaps some nettle clearing might be considered appropriate. But so there's a tempting looking spot. I don't have a rod with me because it is the river closed season. You can fish for trout, but my purpose today was to grab an hour of clear weather in a day that has been dominated by icy drizzle, and to just come and have a look at some of these bits of the river. And this looks pretty fine straight away. I can get right to the river. Nice back slack eddy there from a fast run. Looks a bit snaggy. I have to lift that piece of wood out, but that's a very tempting place to hurl a fly. Let's see if we can poke down a little more. In fact, this whole stretch looks good. No possibility of a back cast of any kind, so it will be the dreaded bow and arrow cast, but I've been practicing a lot and I'm achieving a measure of accuracy and range that is surprising me and delighting me. It's actually not too deep there, so it would be possible to wade out and run a streamer downstream with the current. But it feels quite muddy as opposed to firm. I suspect it's even less firm in the river. Anyway, this all looks jolly tempting, though I would be nervous about it if the water were any higher. Okay, that's good news. We'll be back, and next time it will be personal. It'll obviously have to wait until the middle of June, when the river closed season finishes and we can once again fish the rivers. But yes, we'll be back. So yeah, I kind of don't mind paying for rivers that are maintained and accessible. I object to paying the Environment Agency, who appear to have abdicated any responsibility whatsoever for the maintenance of the rivers that are supposed to be in their charge. But nonetheless, I buy my rod license every year because that's what you're supposed to do. But if I ever find myself in conversation with Environment Agency personnel when I'm out fishing, or indeed anywhere else, I will not be shy in expressing my views of their incompetence, frankly, and their abdication of responsibility. That's a promising looking fast run down there. Access would be difficult. This is an absolutely sheer bank, just drops straight in there. That's a pretty attractive looking run as well. I don't see any way of getting down to the head of that run. I don't have any waders on either, but maybe there's a way in from the bottom. You can see the bottom of the river. It seems fairly clean. Aha. Right, I'm not going to do any scrambling today, but that's definitely a way in. Let's see what's around the corner. Yeah, that's a way in, but I don't fancy my chances of getting out again. I have to go out on the opposite bank. I think there's a bridge further down, but this is quite impressive. There are supposed to be some barbel and possibly some grayling in here. We'll see, dear, we'll see. Welcome to Nayland Beach. Okay. Really? Okay. Oh yeah, wow. Cool. Someone's even dug in some little steps here. I haven't really got my toughest boots on, but these will have to do. And will you look at that? Wow. Yeah. That'll do nicely, sir. Much more solid bottom here with all this gravel. You can see by the detritus in that tree how high the river gets when it's full. Okay, that's good news. Very accessible. That's accessible, but with a scramble. Okay, good. And nicely signposted for us. Brilliant. Okay, this is definitely going to be a trip in the summer or two. Okay, that's doable in terms of getting down there. Don't really fancy my chances of getting back up, but possibly along the end of it there there's going to be a way. I don't think so. But what a lovely stretch of river. The opposite bank looks like it's worth investigating. Some degree of access. Rather annoyingly, my battery, which I thought I'd fully charged, is showing 21%. But there's something strange with these standard issue GoPro batteries. Apparently it's a known problem with the GoPro 10. that the battery charging monitoring routine seems a little unreliable, and I've had it happen that I've charged it, put it onto charge for enough hours to fill it, and then despite having been on charge for that number of hours, the meter shows that it's empty. But if you pull the battery out of its socket and then plug it back in, it resets the brain and shows that you do in fact have a full charge. So now I don't know whether to continue on the side of the river I started on or try this side. What on earth is that? Someone's lost or left a toy. Right, the path only goes back up that side of the river unless you come under the bridge and delve into the woods. But I think I'm going to go back across the other side and continue down on that side of the river, because there is a path there. And generally where there's a path, it indicates that somebody thinks it's worth clearing a path to provide access. So I'm hoping that access will continue back on this side of the river. I believe this river course is the border between Suffolk and Essex. Oh dear, this is not looking hopeful. And Suffolk is on the northern side of the river, which is where we are, and Essex on the southern. Ah, no, that's not looking healthy at all. Maybe I have got to go back across. Yes. Okay, let's return. Let's go back over the bridge and see what we can do. But there's a lot of fishable swims. Yeah, you can get down to the river there, but then that's as far as you go. Maybe what we have to do is turn left. To get out of the undergrowth, and then double back on ourselves to get into the woods here and back on the course of the river. Because if I come under the bridge, there's not a clear path through there. So how on earth did the child's toy car transporter come to be left here? I hesitate to suggest it's bad parenting. It might just be bad childing. Another bridge. Okay. Okay, this is intriguing. Let's see. I wish I had my Timberlands on. Let's see if this takes us to the river. It should do. Whether this is accessible when the river is in full flood is another question. Somehow I doubt it. There is something causing waves up there. Probably a duck or similar. This looks more hopeful, doesn't it? Dig in here and hope that in the next 20 minutes or so the river doesn't suddenly rise. Yeah, this has all been underwater for sure. Okay, that gets us back to the river bank. Albeit an inaccessible part of the riverbank. There appears to be another child's toy in the river there. I'm looking very carefully here. I'm testing every place I put my foot down before I transfer my weight onto it. That's not looking hopeful. I may have to find my way across there to make any further progress, which may not be possible without waders. That looks too mucky and stagnant to hold any fish, and I suspect the bottom is really soft. But things have fallen pretty right under my feet, so I managed not to trip up on. Maybe we have to go all the way around the back of this pond-like thing. To get back into the woods. So let's do that. Oh yes, ducks through there causing all the ripples. Okay, so we're going to go under here. Back up here. And across this little bridge. Tweet, tweet and ting. It's actually warmed up a bit, which is a massive relief because it has been piercing bitterly cold today and for the last few days. Although we're at the end of April, one would normally expect it to be not quite so cold it has been absolutely bitter, with steady north winds dragging cold air down from the polar regions. And if it's not been northerly, it's had easterly in it, which drags cold air in off the North Sea. Not sure what that is. It would normally be some kind of a footpath marker, but it doesn't look like it. There's a sign up here that says Private Fishing, Colchester Anglers Angling Preservation Society, which I am a member of, or more grammatically, of which I am a member. I suspect this is the end of the stretch down here, but I know from the maps on the society's website that if you continue along this stretch of the river, you do indeed come to another stretch to which the society has the rights. 9% battery. When it runs out, I'm just going to pull the battery out and then replace it and put it back in and see what happens. But I've ordered some enduro batteries, which are supposed to be a vastly superior wok of crustacea for the GoPro. Longer lasting, quicker charging, and don't have this strange recharging problem that the standard batteries have. Yeah, this looks like it might do some good. Whether it's fishable or not, I don't know. I think on the way back we'll go back up the other bank and hope that we can get back out onto the road without having to come all the way back down to that bridge, which would be a poor outcome, as I believe the terminology has it. I've got a flask of tea in my pocket. I might have a little nip in a minute. Look at all the beautiful green leaves. Look at wild gunnera here, and all the horrible stinging nettles. I did go fishing once on a bit of the Roman River, wearing shorts, and could see this beautiful pool, but there were thigh-high stinging nettles between me and the pool. But the red mist was up, and so I waded into these stinging nettles in my shorts and spent the next 2 days in absolute agonies. Okay, we're kind of back on the river-ish, sort of, a bit. Yes, we are back on the river. There we go, that's a nice little muddy beach. And another fishable stretch. So yeah, apparently there are chub in this river too. So, and they're known to take a fly. So we'll see what we can achieve in the summer, in the open season, and indeed going into the autumn. And theoretically the winter, as the closed season of the rivers in the UK is from March the 15th to June the 15th. The timing being designed to allow the fish to spawn. as I understand it. Whereas the trout season opens in April, end of April, 1st of April usually, suggesting then obviously that the trout spawn in the winter months, because the trout season closes again at the end of September. Yeah, give it a couple of weeks and these nettles will be up to, these will be eye height. I could get a back cast here. Not sure if it's accessible from over there, whether that path re-establishes itself a little further down. That's something to find out next time out. But for the moment, this is the bank of choice. I'm not sure whether the club waters continue down here. I'll have to look on the website. These little paths clearly indicate that other people have found it worth their while to go down the banks to the river at these spots. And they're too big to be animal tracks. 1% battery. I had this happen when I was on tour in Europe, and it kept going for hours. Well, not hours, but a long time on 1%, which suggested that the battery had significantly more charge than was being reported. Oh yeah, this is lovely. The river looks in not unreasonable condition. Let's persist and see what happens at this stretch. All I can see is stinging nettles. Right, testing every foothold. Very wary of a sudden drop disguised by very tall nettles. I don't really see any evidence of a path on that side. You'd have to cross into a field full of cows, I suspect. But this is all accessible. Whether it's legally fishable or not is unclear. And it's not really fly fishing territory. Or is it? It's probably okay if I'm down on the bank there. There's enough clear air for a bit of a backcast there. Yeah, okay. Just going to go around this next corner. Famous last words. We'll make our way back. Famous last words. Oh yeah, just one more cast. Falls into the same category of eminently breakable commitments. You see, that looks like it gets clearer down there. What did I tell you? But yeah, that's going to have to do. I have other commitments, so I'll take the side of the edge of the field route back to that bridge, and maybe we'll go up the other side, and fingers crossed we can get out at the top of it when it hits the road. Still showing 1%. This might be a good time to turn it off, stop, take out the battery, put it back in, turn it back on and see what it says. Or do I just leave it running? It's been at 1% for ages. I presume whoever wrote the software for this was smart enough to write the control system in such a way that when the battery dies, it doesn't simply leave a file of infinite size on the drive, because it doesn't bother to write an end of file marker. But I suspect we're about to find out. I've recorded 38 minutes on a battery that read at 37% when I switched it on. And I've never yet recorded from 100% to 0 in one continuous recording. They do claim a battery life of 4 to 5 hours, but on the evidence of this, I would suggest that's nonsense. If I've done 40 minutes on, I'm going to go this way, it's less gloopy. If I've done 40 minutes on 30 odd percent battery, that's about a third of the battery. That would suggest 120 minutes or thereabouts on a full battery. And here's the mother of all diversions. The word gloopy, which we just used to describe the mud on the path, in Russian, gloopy means stupid. There we are. Stuff you never thought you would even want to know, never mind actually know. I'm happy to say my Russian is coming along very nicely thanks to Duolingo and a rich vein on YouTube of Russian movies with English subtitles. And there are some great movies, there's some really good Russian movies, and it's quite interesting watching. There's a Watershed, which is the 1989 collapse of the Soviet Union, and films that were made before that watershed are very different from films made after it because of the degree of control that the Soviet government exercised over all the arts. One of the most immediately identifiable differences is if you watch Soviet war movies, every unit in the Soviet army had a political officer whose job it was under the Soviet government to police the purity of political thought and indeed word and indeed deed of the soldiers in that unit. And from Soviet era movies, the political officer is always depicted as being as brave and true and gallant and upright as the regular infantry and indeed the officers. In post-Soviet war movies, the political officer is usually a figure of fun and ridicule. There's also a great difference in the way the Russian movies, whether Soviet or post-Soviet, do war movies. They have a very different atmosphere from Hollywood war movies. And they tend to concentrate more on human stories